Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a really captivating historical mystery. It's one that properly challenges the standard story of global exploration.
Sounds intriguing.
It is. Our mission basically is to unpack some sources that explore this, well, pretty mind-bending idea. Could a Chinese Muslim admiral have reached Australia decades, really decades, before any Europeans?
Okay, wow. So not Columbus, not Da Gama. We're talking much earlier.
Exactly, long before them. Think early 1400s. China, specifically Nanjing, was launching these enormous fleets, massive.
Fleets led by Admiral Zheng He, right, I know the name, a Muslim admiral from Yunnan province. That itself is pretty remarkable for the time.
It really is. And the scale of his expeditions under Emperor Yongle, just incredible. We're talking ships that dwarfed anything Europe had for ages.
Huge treasure ships are often called.
That's them. So the big question in this deep dive is, did this incredible fleet, or maybe, a part of it, actually sail down and touch Australia's northern coast?
Which would rewrite a pretty significant chunk of history.
Completely. It's sometimes called a shadow voyage because the official records, well, they track his known journeys, but Australia, that's off the books.
And that's where the mystery really deepens, isn't it? The possibility of something happening outside the official narrative.
Precisely. So let's get into the man himself. Zheng He, born Ma He, 1371, a Hui Muslim.
Right. The Hui are a distinct group in China, ethnically and religiously. Descended partly from Silk Road traders, I believe.
That's right. And he was captured as a boy by Ming forces, ended up serving Prince Zudi, who then became the Yongle Emperor.
And clearly gained his trust. I mean, to be given command of these fleets.
Exactly. He wasn't just a sailor, was he? The sources paint him as much more.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
He was a diplomat, a military strategist, a really trusted imperial envoy.
Yeah.
His job wasn't just sailing, it was projecting Ming power and prestige across the Indian Ocean.
Showing the flag, but on a monumental scale.
Sort of, yeah. Facilitating trade, gathering tribute, making connections. These voyages were like state-sponsored mega expeditions. Think of the investment, the planning.
Huge. And he led 7 of these major expeditions, didn't he? Between 1405 and 1433.
7. With fleets sometimes numbering up to 300 ships, maybe 30,000 personnel, sailors, soldiers, officials, interpreters.
Staggering numbers. And officially they reached Southeast Asia, India, the Persian Gulf, Red Sea, even East Africa. We know that much.
We do. That's documented. But it's the scale and the duration of these voyages that opens the door to, well, to other possibilities. What else might have happened?
And that leads us right into the controversial bit.
Gavin Menzies.
Yep, Gavin Menzies, former British naval officer. His book 1421 really threw a cat among the pigeons.
It's certainly needed. He argued quite forcefully that his fleet didn't just stick to the known routes, but went much further, including mapping Australia's northern coast.
Decades before the Dutch or Cook.
Now, we have to be clear here, right? Mainstream historians are skeptical, divided maybe.
Very divided is fair. The official Chinese imperial records, the Ming histories, they say nothing about Australia.
Though Menzies and others argue that records were destroyed or suppressed later, especially after the emperors changed and policies shifted.
That's part of the argument, yeah. That things were deliberately kept quiet or the records lost when China turned inward. So, like the research says, there's no single smoking gun piece of evidence.
But the clues Menzies pointed to are, well, they make you think, don't they?
They do. Let's walk through them. First off, these old European maps.
Ah, yes, the 16th century ones. Maps showing a big southern landmass, Terra Australis, or sometimes Chavla Grande.
And the crucial thing is the shape on some of these maps looks uncannily like parts of Australia, particularly the north and west coasts.
But they predate any confirmed European landing. So where did that information come from?
Good question. And Menzies highlights place names on these maps that sound, well, not European, more like Malay or even Chinese phonetic renderings.
Suggesting the map makers might have been copying older source maps, perhaps maps acquired from Chinese or Arab traders.
That's the speculation. Maybe knowledge picked up in the trading hubs, Malacca, Goa, Macau, like whispers passed along trade routes.
Interesting. What else did he point to?
Well, there are mentions of Aboriginal oral traditions in northern Australia, stories about great ships, different from the usual Makasan trepangers they knew later.
Oral traditions are tricky historical sources, but definitely worth noting.
Agreed. Then there's the claim about artifacts, Things like pottery shards or small statues, supposedly Chinese, found inland.
Right, but that's probably the most contested piece, isn't it? The provenance and dating of those finds are heavily debated by archaeologists.
Very much so, not widely accepted. And finally, there's a specific suggestion about one of Zheng He's commanders.
Hongbao.
That's the one, Vice Admiral Hong Bao. Some interpretations of records suggest his squadron might have separated from the main fleet and sailed further south, perhaps exploring that region.
Okay, so maps, oral traditions, contested artifacts, and a possible specific voyage by a subcommander. It's suggestive, if not conclusive.
Exactly. Tantalizing clues. But then you have to ask, could they actually do it? Was a fleet from the early 1400s even capable of such a voyage?
Well, let's talk about those ships. The treasure ships, the flagships, the sources say they were enormous, over 120 meters long.
Double a football pitch. It's hard to even visualize a wooden ship that big.
Colossal. And technologically advanced for the era. They had stern-post rudders for better steering, watertight compartments, a huge safety feature, multiple decks.
So these weren't just big, they were sophisticated, built for long voyages.
Absolutely. And crucially, think about their purpose. They weren't primarily warships or colonization vessels.
Right, you said earlier they were more about diplomacy and trade.
Exactly. Designed to carry huge amounts of cargo, porcelain, silk, tea, but also people.
Uh-huh.
Diplomats, interpreters, physicians, religious leaders, even livestock for food on the voyage. They were like floating embassies or trade delegations.
A kind of soft power projection, maybe? Showing off Ming wealth and organization rather than just military might.
That's a good way to put it. It was about impressing potential tribute states, establishing relations. So, yes, the capability was definitely there. If any fleet of that era could have reached Australia and made it back.
They would have been Zheng He's. Makes sense.
So, okay, they could have done it, but why Australia? What would have drawn them there?
The theory often goes back to that idea of finding tribute partners, maybe scouting for new states to bring into the Ming system.
And resources, presumably. What did Northern Australia have that China might want?
The research points to a few key things. Bêche de mer, sea cucumbers.
Ah, the trepang. Highly valued in Chinese cuisine and medicine, even today.
Exactly. That trade definitely happened later with Makasan sailors, so the resource was there. Also pearls and valuable tropical woods.
And geographically, it's not that far a leap from Southeast Asia, is it? If you're already sailing around Java and Timor.
Right. The sea lanes are relatively direct. It's plausible navigationally.
There's also the possibility it wasn't the main fleet, or even Zheng He himself, who went.
Like that Hong Bao idea, a smaller reconnaissance group.
Precisely. Maybe a smaller squadron was sent to check it out, map the coast, assess the resources, and then that knowledge just quietly filtered back. It wouldn't necessarily warrant a huge mention in the main imperial records if it wasn't a major diplomatic success or a new tributary state.
Which could explain the silence in the official histories.
It's one way to reconcile the clues with the lack of official confirmation.
Okay, so if these voyages happened, or even if just the capability was so immense, why did it all seemingly vanish? Why aren't his voyages common knowledge in the same way Columbus's are?
Well, the political winds shifted dramatically in China. Emperor Yongle, the driving force behind the expeditions, died in 1424.
And his successors weren't so keen on these expensive overseas adventures.
Not at all. The Confucian scholar officials at court had always been a bit wary of them. The cost, the focus on trade and military projection over agriculture. After Yongle, they gained the upper hand.
So policy changed drastically.
Completely. Long-distance voyages were banned. The great shipyards were dismantled. Some records say even burned. The Navy was allowed to decline.
Wow. A deliberate turning inward.
Yes. And Zheng He himself. He died either during or just after his seventh and final official voyage around 1433.
And his personal logs and charts.
Reportedly lost, destroyed, or locked away by officials hostile to the voyages. Whether deliberately suppressed or just neglected, the result was the same. The detailed knowledge faded.
So China effectively pulled back from the Indian Ocean.
It did, which of course left a power vacuum that, within a few decades, European power, starting with the Portuguese, then the Dutch and English, were only too happy to fill.
And Zheng He became, well, a legend in some parts of Asia, but largely forgotten in the West, and even downplayed in China itself for centuries, almost erased from the mainstream narrative.
Until recent decades, when there's been a resurgence of interest, both in China and globally, but the story's significance, even with the Australia part being debated, is huge.
How so? What should we take away from it?
Well, first, It completely challenges the Eurocentric view of exploration, doesn't it? Here you have a Chinese Muslim admiral commanding fleets across vast oceans, demonstrating incredible maritime capability, long before Europe's Age of Discovery really got going.
It proves the Indian Ocean wasn't just waiting empty for Europeans to arrive.
Absolutely not. It was already a complex, thriving zone of trade and interaction. Chinese, Arab, Persian, Indian, African networks, Zheng He. He's voyages were part of that world, not the beginning of global connections.
It forces us to rethink who the major players were and when.
Exactly. And specifically regarding Australia, even if you remain skeptical about Menzies' claims, just pondering the possibility forces a rethink.
You mean Australia's history might not start neatly with the Dutch sightings or Cook's Landing?
Right. It suggests the potential for earlier contacts, earlier knowledge, these shadows in his past, as you put it. It adds layers, complexity.
And the narrative itself, the core story, an ethnic minority, Muslim admiral leading perhaps the greatest fleets of his time for the Chinese emperor. That's powerful in its own right.
Incredibly powerful. It breaks so many stereotypes about who explorers were, who held power, who had advanced technology. The idea that this figure, or his ships, might have reached Australia. Well, it fundamentally disrupts the traditional maps of discovery we all grew up with.
It really does. It makes you question the whole framework.
So, no, you won't find any monuments to Zheng He in Darwin Harbor.
And school kids in Sydney aren't reading about Hong Bao's possible southern journey?
Not yet, anyway. But
Yeah.
you look at some of that ancient rock art in Arnhem Land, showing unusual ships.
Ships that don't quite look like the later Makasan prahus or European vessels.
Exactly. And you hear the lingering stories, maybe just folklore now, on islands like Java or Timor, about the great Chinese fleets that came bearing gifts, not demanding conquest.
It makes you wonder.
It does. History isn't always neat. It doesn't always leave clear records or stone monuments.
Sometimes, maybe it just leaves echoes, ripples, waves long after the ships have gone.
Precisely. Waves. And it leaves us asking, what else is out there? What other histories, other connections might be waiting just beneath the surface, ready to be rediscovered or reinterpreted if we just look from a different angle?
A question worth pondering. We definitely encourage you, our listeners, to keep digging, keep asking those questions, and continue your own deep dives into the fascinating corners of history.